In 1386, a court in Normandy convicted a pig of murder. Then they dressed it in a jacket and trousers and hanged it in the public square. You'd assume medieval justice, however brutal, at least required the accused to be alive. Human. Capable of saying sorry or "I didn't do it." You'd be wrong. That pig was arrested, thrown in the same jail as human prisoners and tried before a secular court with all the procedure you'd give a person. The Viscounty of Falaise kept receipts. 6 sous to feed the pig in prison, 10 sous to the executioner for his trouble, and 2 deniers for a new pair of gloves, because the hangman needed fresh hands for a fresh kind of defendant. The sow had killed an infant. A tragic, chaotic event. The community's response was not to shrug and slaughter the pig on the spot. It was to put the animal through a full legal trial, complete with a lawyer appointed to represent it, because the law demanded form. The animal was dressed in human clothes before the hanging, not as mockery, but to mark it as a moral agent. You can't execute a piece of property. You have to make it a person first. The logic went like this. Animals were part of God's moral order. The book of Exodus said an ox that gored a person should be stoned. If an animal could commit a sin, it could stand trial for it. This wasn't a village losing its mind. It was an entire legal culture taking the idea of a just universe so seriously that it extended to snouts and hooves. And Falaise was not a one-off. In 1457, a sow and her 6 piglets were tried in Savigny for killing a 5-year-old boy. The sow was convicted and hanged. The piglets, however, were acquitted. The court found them too young to have understood the crime, and noted they had been led astray by their mother. Each piglet got a lawyer. Legal reasoning was applied. The judge didn't just laugh and walk away. He weighed evidence about moral development in swine. If you're waiting for the moment this turns into a Monty Python sketch, I have bad news. It keeps going. In 1474, the city of Basel burned a rooster at the stake. The crime? Laying an egg. A rooster's egg, everyone knew, could hatch a basilisk, a serpent whose gaze killed. The court didn't debate whether basilisks existed. They debated whether the egg was voluntary or the product of demonic possession, and concluded the bird was guilty of an unnatural act. The rooster was executed in full public view, with the same solemnity you'd give a heretic. The secular courts handled individual animals, but the church had its own caseload: pest control by excommunication. In the early 16th century, the village of St. Julien sued the local weevils. The insects were destroying vineyards, so the bishop's court assigned them a lawyer, Barthélemy Chassaigne, a real jurist who later became one of France's top legal minds. Chassaigne argued his beetle clients could not appear in court because the journey was too dangerous for such small creatures. And besides, God had given them the plants to eat. The case dragged on. The court issued summons. Nobody showed up, obviously. Eventually a compromise was struck. The town set aside a field where the weevils could live, and the weevils agreed, in legal fiction, to stay there. The vineyard was saved. Rats got the same treatment. In 1522, the Diocese of Autun excommunicated an entire population of rats for eating crops. They were tried in absentia, convicted, and formally cursed. The rats did not seem to notice. The church's position was that if spiritual authority meant anything, it had to apply to every creature under heaven. The legal machine was not broken. It was running too perfectly on its own terrible premises. This is the part where you'd expect me to say it was all ignorant superstition. But these trials made a kind of sense. A child is killed by a pig, and the world suddenly feels ungovernable. Holding a trial with a judge, a verdict, a punishment, doesn't undo the death, but it stitches the wound. It says, the law can still handle this. The chaos has a shape. The pig becomes a defendant because the alternative is admitting that random violence has no answer. England ran the same program through a different mechanism: deodand. If a cart ran over a person, the cart itself was forfeit to the crown. Not because the cart was guilty, but because the object that caused death had to be purified, monetized, and removed from the world. That law stayed on the books until 1846. The instinct to hold things accountable, even non-human things, never really left. And here's the twist that changes the meaning of everything you just heard. We still do this. When a dog mauls someone today, the dog is seized, assessed, and often euthanized by court order. There's a hearing, evidence, Sometimes a lawyer arguing the dog's fate. The dog doesn't know it's on trial. It never did. The trial is for us. It turns a tragedy into a process. And it's not just animals. Corporations are legal persons. We sue them, we punish them, we force them into courtrooms where they sit through lawyers just like that pig sat through its counsel. The form survives because the form is what we need. The pig in Falaise was not executed because it was evil. It was executed because the town needed to watch a judge, hear a verdict, see a rope. 700 years later, we still drag the animal into the courtroom. We just stopped dressing it in trousers.